and move to video call. Okay, so the call should be live now. Well, it takes a second to show. Cool, awesome. So I think that we're live. I can see Julian on the Twitch stream, so there you are. Julian, you're the first face on the call right now. But hi everybody, maybe I'll just pin myself for a quick second. Welcome to the first Radicle community call. My name is Abbey. I run the community team of on the Radicle project. So this is the first of a monthly series of community calls that we'll be doing within the Radicle project. These will happen monthly on the last Wednesday of the month, and it's basically an opportunity for our core teams to come together and discuss development updates, demo new features, and answer questions for the community. Right now we're keeping participation in the call limited to members and contributors to our core teams. We'll talk through who that is and who's working on what in this call today as well. But I think we'll definitely like to open up in the future. So if you're interested in participating in future calls, feel free to DM me on Discord or through our Discourse forum. If you're watching live, feel free to interact via the chat. I'll be there typing away. We'll be having like a 5 to 10 minute Q&A at the end of the chat. I'll collect questions that come through throughout the entire call. So feel free to just drop any questions that you have there and we'll try to get them answered. In case we have issues with the stream, which we probably will because it's our first time streaming, this call is being recorded right now, so we'll be posting it to YouTube just in case there's issues or you can't stay for the whole thing. And so yeah, that's it. Let's get started. I'll pass it off to LA first, who will be giving a project-wide update from the Radicle Foundation. LA, take it away.
Cool. Thank you, Abby. Let me share my screen for a second. Cool. Can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Great. Okay, so hey everyone, my name is Ele. I'm one of the founders of the project. And as this is the first community call, we thought that it would be a good idea to actually provide an update from the Radicle Foundation about the overall progress of the Radicle project. Probably you already be wondering, like, okay, Radicle Foundation, what's that? So I thought that might make sense to actually just provide a simple description. So the Radicle Foundation is a Swiss non-profit that has been funding Radicle maintainers and contributors until they fully transition to the DAO, to the on-chain treasury. The foundation's board usually, like what we do today, that's Alexis, Cloudhead, and myself, the two founders of the project. We coordinate with a number of different contributors, a project-wide strategy, and then basically allocate capital to realize that strategy. And we're going to talk about that strategy for 2021 later in the call today. Practically, the foundation holds basically $12 million that the project raised in the last private round, the Radicle trademarks, and then also 5 million RAD, which is 5% of the overall supply of the network. And most important point I want to communicate here is that as the network is progressively decentralized over the next few months, and that process has already started, we're basically expecting a lot of the focus to be actually moving to the DAO. This is the end destination. We're really not, looking to actually, develop another centralized entity that keeps control over the project. But basically, simply, the foundation is helping with the progressive decentralization to the DAO. And we have a lot of exciting things in the works there that we will be sharing later in the call. Now, moving towards strategy and objectives for the project for 2021, I thought it would be helpful to, again, provide one tagline, the angle of Radicle. The way we're thinking about this, Radicle is a code collaboration stack that is secure, sovereign, and Web3 native. And these are the three main properties that differentiate Radicle from other networks. These are the properties that basically we really, look to harness and double down on. And you will hear updates across all these three later today. Maybe I want to have one slide also on the Radicle architecture for people that are not so familiar about the work we do. At the core of Radicle, there's a peer-to-peer application protocol built around Git that we call Radicle Link. And Radicle Link is basically live and functioning since the end of November. It's still in beta version, it's still unstable, it's still seeing a lot of active development, but it is there. It has been seeing decent traction from a number of different teams. And the goal that we have for 2021 for that section is to basically make the peer-to-peer network a lot more healthy and reliable as we're maturing basically the tech stack. So that's one component. The second component that you're going to hear us talk a lot about is the Radicle smart contract system, and this is basically the Radicle Ethereum integration. And it's this smart contract system that basically adds three unique things to the Radicle stack. The one is a global namespace, and we're using an ENS-compatible registrar for that. The second one is something that we will be shipping really soon, actually. You will hear teams providing update on that, with something that we call Radicle Orgs. And these are basically, developer DAOs controlling repos on Radicle. And then the last component of our smart contract system is a number of funding protocols that help open source maintainers fund their open source work. Finally, what you see on the right is basically our desktop client, which we call Upstream. This is also live and functioning since November, and you will hear an update from that team. But also in 2021, we already spending a lot of time and development on alternative clients, on a web native experience that you will hear an update from that too. Moving to the high level objectives for 2021, and on purpose, these objectives are project wide, so they are a bit more high level on purpose. The main goal that we have for 2021 is basically adoption, and specifically when we're thinking about adoption, we're really focusing on decentralized communities in comparison with other centralized projects that focusing more on the enterprise or on like basically generic open source projects. For Radicle, we're really thinking that for 2021, the main goal we have is to have every DAO in the world or every decentralized community in the world be on Radicle. And the main things that you can do there today is, for now, is basically mostly mirror repos within the peer-to-peer network, but in the next few weeks we will be releasing Radicle Orgs, which basically effectively code governance over repos, and then also later in the summer we will be releasing funding protocols. So we basically want to see more DAOs experiment with Radicle across these three different sections. The second thing is that we have set as a high-level objective for 2021 is to have all the Radicle core teams that you will hear presenting later today fully dogfooding Radicle. This is still in process, but the goal that we have for 2021 is to not only move code collaboration in Radicle and code like basically development, but also governance and funding, right? So across the board, we're really thinking about Radicle as this new kind of open source project that is being built, governed, and financed fully on the internet, and we want to see this happen in 2021. Finally, we have a goal to increase the number of developers that are building and contributing to Radicle. We consider this important as our desire with the project is to be a community-owned project, and we want to make it super simple for anyone to contribute to Radicle. Either that's code, or that some contributions on its governance, or any type of basically contribution thing, marketing, content, whatever that is. And then before I pass the ball to different core teams, I also want to provide one slide on more product and technology objectives. So the first goal that we have for 2021 specifically with tech teams is to basically bring the peer-to-peer network at a reliable and healthy state. that is progressing quite nicely, and this is ongoing. The second goal that we have is more focused on code collaboration. Today, the Radicle network fundamentally functions as a peer-to-peer replication network, code replication network, if you wish. But a few weeks ago, we released Radicle Patches, which is our first code collaboration experience, and then also the Radicle Link team has been doing some really interesting work around collaboration objects. So it's our goal for 2021 to create these building blocks that will enable code collaboration experiences in Radicle. The third technical goal that we have is to increase the pace of development for Radicle products, meaning to improve tooling, testing, and then also build reusable components. So it's a lot faster for us to actually bring something from an idea to a user experience. And then finally, you will hear from the alternative clients team later, but we're also aiming to bring Radicle to a web native environment. So offer a low friction web native experience is something that we hear a lot from the Radicle users, and we want to make that happen. Yeah, that's all from me for now. I'm gonna pause here, and then I'm gonna basically pass the ball to the different core teams where you're gonna hear updates from them, a lot more specific, basically. Yeah, thanks.
Cool. Thanks, Ellie, for that update. Now we'll move into, like you said, some updates from each of our core teams. We'll pass it off to each one. They'll introduce themselves, give a little bit of a look on kind of what their yearly objectives are and how they relate to some of the objectives that Ellie just talked about with the foundation, and then kind of talk about what they're working on now. So I think we'll start, if anybody wants to go first, or we can just start with Link. I can pass it off to you, Kim, if you want to take the stage first.
Yeah, sure.
Great.
Let me find this button. Oh. Okay. It's presenting, but my tab, that's bad. Okay. So if I click here, does that look like a presentation?
It does.
Cool. Okay, I'm Kim. I work on the purple box, which is Radicle Link, the peer-to-peer network, stack, and other stuff. And I've been asked to summarize in 5 minutes what we're up to, which is not a lot of time. So I start off with showing a picture of a bald guy, followed by a picture of a yak. The yak is a spirit animal, and its mystery is that no one really knows how it looks like because it can grow hair faster than you can shave it off. And it's part of the spiritual journey of every computer engineer to find out how it looks like. And the legend has it that only one engineer in the history of computer machines has ever managed to turn a yak into Michael Neumann. It was a proprietary yak like this one. And when that person managed to do this and saw what he did, he turned into a quantum computation. Leaving you wondering what this means, I want to introduce to you Sebastian, who is the maintainer of Git Oxide, which is a Rust implementation of a lot of Git. And we asked him if he could help turn Git Oxide into something that we can more easily use in Link, because we ran into a lot of funny issues with the Git libraries that are available. And he got really busy, and even more busier. And finally, he managed to make, to turn critical parts of Git Oxide into something we can incorporate into Link, which is a process that's now starting, and hopefully will make a lot of things more reliable and easier to reason about. Apart from this, the core team is adopting a development process that is centered around RFCs, which you can think of as a similar process than the Rust programming language. So this process is not intended to be very formal. It's more like externalizing the design process, but we're still pending a formalization of it not being that formal. So I'll probably talk about the process itself next time. And there's 3 RFCs currently open, which are of interest. I'll start with the earliest one, which is the collaborative objects. This is led by Alex, who joined not too long ago, the core team. He's the maintainer of Rust implementation of AutoMerge, very fancy CRDT. And that turned out to fit very nicely with our replication model, with some slight adaptations. On top of this data structure, he's also defining a way to specify what properties a collaborative object, which could be an issue or a discussion or whatever, can have. And the current open problem that is to be solved is, how can you make sure in a system that's neither centralized nor tied to a consensus system, how can you ensure that not everyone can modify every property of that object? In parallel to the RFC, there's also a prototype PR open. So if you're interested, you can peek into this. The other big project that's being worked on, that's mostly led by Fintan and XLA, is to come up with an architecture and building blocks for building applications on top of Radicle Link. We came up with a way to define a service architecture on the computer, so different Radicle applications can actually talk to each other, and we define how they do this. For our team, it will mean that we focus more on the lower level things and the plumbing and defining actually how these things talk to each other, and focusing on a CLI first application thing, leaving other applications to other people. And that's basically what we're up to. Next time more about the process, I guess.
Thanks, Kim, for that. Thanks for the yak memes. I also appreciate that. Next, we'll pass it off to the Upstream team, one of our clients. I think Thomas, you were gonna take the stage. Great.
Let me share my screen. All right, can you see this? And is it big enough? You can make it bigger. Is it big enough for everybody?
Looks good.
Okay, cool, thanks. Hi everybody, I'm Thomas. I'm working on the Upstream team that maintains the user-facing client application called Upstream that people now use to interact with Radicle. If you want to know more about this, like the state of it, and if you want to get in contact with us, you can find us on GitHub here and in our public channel on our Discord server. So what I want to start with is giving a brief overview of what our yearly objectives are and giving you an update on like things we accomplished within these objectives. And if time doesn't run out, I can also give you a progress of what we did so far this month, although some of it is covered by like progress in our yearly objectives. So the overall objective of Upstream as an application is that we want to maintain a good first integrated experience for users, specifically for new users who have first exposure to the Radicle world. The first objective obviously is something to bootstrap a team around this, and we are 4/5 of the way there, meaning we have 4 people working on it now, and we're looking for 1 more person. And those people are Julian, who's designing and leading the project, Brandon, who's also in design, both of them I think are on Twitch chat, and Rudolf and me doing engineering. Rudolf I think is also on this call. Yeah, so that's our team, and yeah, we're looking for 1 more member. Yeah, so if you know anybody or if yourself are interested, reach out to us. Yeah, we're looking for an engineer with some experience with Ethereum. That would be great. That was our first objective. Second objective is a bit more broad and strategic. It's define, advertise, and facilitate core use cases. There has been no like actual or like progress that we can easily show there, but it's part of an ongoing conversation. What these core use cases are and how we can expose them. Third objective is to measure and increase the usage of the application, something that's a bit far out there. So we're not measuring this at the moment, and so we basically don't have an idea how many people are using this, except from like the anecdotal things that we see in like when people try it out, when we support people. The more tangible things are the goals 4, 5, and 6. First one is to introduce and integrate blockchain-based features. Blockchain, in this case, is Ethereum. And so what we have now is the basic infrastructure in the app to develop Ethereum-based features. That means like connecting it with a wallet, talking to the graph and Ethereum nodes to get some data, things like that. And we are very close to shipping orgs, something that was already mentioned by Elle. That's a feature that allows DAOs or multi-sig wallets, but also like individual accounts to control the state of a project. It starts off with something we call anchoring, where it can say, okay, this commit is canonical now, kind of like think of it as tagging on creating Git tags on Ethereum, but we obviously want to expand this with more features. So that's something that we are very close to shipping. We are just today created the org for our team on mainnet, and so yeah, we are very close. The fifth goal is to reformat Upstream to conform with the new overall engineering strategy. That's related to the diagram you saw from Ella earlier, meaning that a lot of the code that is currently in Upstream that is actually doing protocol work should be moved into Link. And we then will interact with this new service-oriented application architecture that Kim mentioned that we just merged in RFC for. Second thing on item on this is that we want to contribute to improving the tooling by extracting some real components. In our case, like basically a design system so that it can use by the all clients team to quickly ramp up and provide a consistent experience. And the last thing is that, like the all clients team, we also want to move towards a web native Radicle experience. And yeah, we kind of surveyed what this means, but we are not actively working on it just yet because we really want to focus on the Ethereum-based features. Last goal related to, I think it was point 4 on what Ella presented, is to make the project more open source friendly and have contributors ship experiences. And specifically what we did there to work towards this goal is we started improving our contribution guidelines so that contributors don't need to ask us all the time, like, how do I make commits? How do I run the testing? Stuff like that. We started grooming our issues to make them more accessible and provide an easy entry to just jumping on an issue and creating a patch for that. We opened the project channel on Discord to the public, so everything we talk about regarding the project is visible there, and so that will mean that we can easily engage people, and we are also very responsive to everybody who's chatting there. And as a result, we've seen, I call them sporadic contributions for now on smaller issues. So nothing like substantial, with the exception of somebody trying to make Upstream work on Windows. But I think that's already a good early sign, that we are on the right track and gives us some valuable feedback on how to improve or make the project more accessible. All right, I think I'm out of time, if I'm not mistaken. So on the monthly progress, I'll be very brief. I talked about orgs already. We also shipped patches. That's what Ella mentioned. And the rest, I think, I basically covered on the yearly objectives. We'll share this document later, and you can go through the details and the references. Thanks.
Cool. Thanks, Thomas. Just quick shout out to the Upstream team for shipping patches, which was like a huge feature. I think that we would have celebrated that if we had a community call when it shipped. But yeah, lots of really fun product features that you guys are shipping in the near future. So really excited to see that. Like Thomas said, I think that the Upstream channel on Discord is completely public, so everybody can kind of see what's going on in terms of app development and get involved there. Cool. Thanks, Thomas. Next, to talk about more client stuff, we have Alexis. Alexis, do you want to take the stage?
Okay. Sure. All right, so let me present.
Are you going to be able to share your screen?
On Google Meet, there is no issue. Yeah. Thank God for that. Okay. So I assume you can see this. I've had to bump up the README font in Upstream through the web inspector, so it's a trick. I'm Alexis, one of the founders of Radicle, and I am basically working on this alternative clients team, which, I mean, as it says, the name is in the name, the idea is to really create an alternative to Upstream and to focus actually on the web experience, as Ellie explained, and the CLI experience also. But right now we're mainly focused on web. It's mainly me and someone who joined me called Sebastian. I don't know if he's in the call or not, but he's working part-time and I'm working full-time on this. I'm not going to go too deep into the all of this stuff because I kind of want to show stuff, show a demo. But basically, the two main points are building out a web experience and a CLI experience for Radicle. On the web and also on the CLI, orgs is a big thing. Project browsing is another big thing. User profile management, etc. Yeah. Anyway, you can find more stuff here, but I'm going to dive into the actual demo. So give me a second so that I can share the other screen. Yeah, here it is. Okay. So this is the web client or Radicle interface. It is a browser native application, and currently it basically works with MetaMask. So I'm going to connect right here. These are not my real RADs or on the Ringbee network. So the idea with the web client is to basically do everything we can on the web. So everything that can be done on the web, let's try to do it on the web. This means there's some limitations at the moment, like we can't really sign a Radicle link artifacts because that requires a private key and private key crypto and all that stuff that that doesn't really work on the web right now. But we can do Ethereum stuff and we can do read-only Radicle link stuff. So the first thing is orgs that I wanted to show briefly. And these are just kind of a bunch of orgs that I guess the Upstream team has been creating. So you see there's quite a bit. And these are some that I've created. You can click on them. There's not that much information at the moment, but you can basically see each org has an owner. This ownership can be transferred. Orgs can have a name set on them, which basically is an ENS name. And so if I do, for example, foo here, it's going to ask me if I want to register that name. It costs 10 Rad. And when I have registered a name, I can then essentially point it to an org and point the org to the name. And I think there was I think with Abbey, we created an org, which should still be here. Yeah, there you go. So the Jello org is an example of this, where we have all of the metadata set in ENS, actually. So there's a URL, a Twitter, and you can also set a GitHub and a couple of other things, an avatar, and everything essentially shows up here in the org. We can look at the ENS registration. You can see that same information here, and you can edit everything through here directly, which is quite nice. Now, the other thing that's super interesting, as was explained earlier, is the integration with projects and anchoring and all that stuff. So, and I have an example of that in this other tab. So this is an org that has been created with a Gnosis safe as the owner of the org. So every transaction that needs to be done through the org needs to be done through the safe, essentially. So as a multi-sig. Right now, this safe only has one member, so that's pretty straightforward. And you can see a project called Radicle Docs was anchored under the org, and so we can actually check that out. And so the information here is basically the same as on Upstream. The only sort of new thing is this little anchored badge. And you'll see this in Upstream also in a different way. But essentially, this tells us that the org, this org here, has anchored this project at this commit hash on chain. So you can kind of be, if you trust the org, you can trust the code that you're browsing, basically. The source code browser is very similar to the one in Upstream. You can kind of browse everything online. And one of the nice things is you have deep linking. So you can essentially link to an org and a project under that org and a commit hash under that project and the file. You can also browse things without the org namespace, which basically just means you won't have the anchor, but it'll still work. Now, this currently works with something called Radicle HTTP API, and this is deployed just locally. So we're just looking at everything local. But eventually, we will deploy this somewhere where it can essentially read state from orgs that have anchored on chain. So the idea is to basically say, okay, everything that's anchored on chain gets replicated to this node. And is browsable. But of course, any org can sort of choose to do that however they want. So they can deploy their own seed nodes, their own APIs, and then everything for them will be browsable through their own nodes. So that's basically it for me. So let me unshare this. The next steps for the alternate clients team is to integrate with IDX. So Ceramic Network is this sort of decentralized identity and document platform that uses IPFS, and they it's what it is, and we want to integrate with them for user identities and then perhaps for org identities to be seen, and have that as a sort of fallback. So we're probably going to have like multiple identity systems working, like Radicle ID if you have that, Ceramic IDX if you have that, and then ENS if you have that. So kind of multiple choice and see what users end up choosing in the long run. Oh yeah, and Wallet Connect. That's the next thing also we're working on. Cool. Yeah, that's it for me. Thanks.
Nice. Thanks, Alexi. Snaps. Awesome work. Super excited for people to start using the web client, and really excited for people to start letting us know what they think about that. So that's a big deal. Next, we have LA, who will be talking about some new and exciting things from the funding team. LA, you want to take it away?
My second appearance, yes.
Second appearance of the day.
That's right. Cool. Thanks. So I wanted to give a very, very brief update on the work we're doing with funding, and then in the next community call, we will probably be demoing something. But today from the funding team, this is basically a team of 4 contributors that has the mission to develop end-to-end experiences that help open source maintainers fund their work sustainably. The idea here is, I mentioned at my first presentation that we see Radicle as this Web3 native code collaboration stack, which practically means that we will have things like DAOs, all over the Radicle experience, and we will also have other things like value, right? Like through cryptocurrencies. And we've been doing a number of, interesting experiments there. I'll mention two, but before that, I need to mention that the team that's working on that is Andrew Dixon. These are the handles within Matrix. So if you see these folks and you're interested in our work, just say hi. So Andrew Dixon is doing mechanism design work for us. Everett is doing front-end work and design. Manuel is doing all the Solidity development, and then myself contributing on all sorts of, weird topics. So that's the team. In terms of projects, we have basically two projects. Two active projects. The one is currently on testnet, and it's expected to be out soon. And then the second one is where we spend most of our time. And the first one that is currently on testnet, and you can also access this actually on Upstream, right, Julian? Already, this is on a branch, I guess, on a development branch.
Yeah, you can't yet use it, but it's already in the app. We'll be surfacing it. If you run the app in experimental mode, you can actually see it.
Cool. Thanks for that. This first protocol is called token streams, and we mentioned this in one of our previous posts. So if you go to radicle.xyz/blog, it's on the post that is talking about integrating with Ethereum. But long story short, what token streams do, it's basically a funding protocol that allows users to commit funds to a contract and basically start streaming payments in regular intervals to a number of Ethereum accounts using pretty much any ERC20 token. So pretty much what that allows is it allows basically any open source supporter to actually set a budget and start basically selecting different open source projects within Radicle, and then agreeing on a budget, and then basically start streaming funds to those individuals. For the Ethereum folks that have experience with Zapier.finance, this is basically a one-to-one streaming payment on Ethereum. So token streams basically takes this idea and extends it to end-to-end. You can have end users streaming to different Ethereum addresses at the same time. And yeah, this is on testnet, and the audit is expected to start soon. So hopefully, if everything goes well, that will be on mainnet soon. Now, moving to the project that we're actually spending most of our time. This is a project that is currently on active development. We hope to have an MVP towards the end of August. That's the current goal we have. And here the idea is basically something that we call community tokens. And the idea here is that basically you have a group of funders that actually buy a monthly subscription that is represented by a project token. So imagine Cloudhead's RX project, then you have the RX token. Behind the scenes, the current implementation actually is using NFTs for that. But long story short, basically, you can subscribe to an open source project in exchange for a stable coin. Let's say you say, I want to support RX with 10 DAI a month. And then in exchange, basically, you get that NFT that says that like you are an RX supporter. And then with that token, basically, you can influence the direction of the project through a snapshot polling system. For the ones of you that have already participated in the governance of Radicle, you can see that we're actually using Snapshot, which is this off-chain polling system for Ethereum. So we do something very similar here, and the idea is basically it's the idea of soft governance. So the supporters basically get the right to influence the direction of the project, and then as long as they're happy with the interaction with the developers, then the idea is that basically they will continuously support the project. So that's the current MVP with this, and then our thinking is if this actually sees traction, the idea is to actually bring this into more things. So we're looking at basically using the same project token for things like, premium issue trackers, or basically for things like content. There are a number of ideas about how we can extend that. But the first hypothesis that we really want to test is if people is basically willing to fund an open source project in exchange for influence within that project. soft governance, not hard governance. There's not something at stake for the maintainers beyond the money that their supporters give them. So that's where we are with this. I think that we will have something to show in the next community call, so stay tuned, or if you're interested, just write to us on Matrix. Thanks.
Cool. Thank you, LA, for that. Really exciting to see some of the funding stuff start coming together. So we're kind of running up on time, so I'm the last core team to present, so I'll just quickly run through my stuff as well, and then we'll see if there's any questions in the chat to make sure that we can stick to our 5 p.m. deadline. I think I can share my screen, so let's see if this works, because I'm also streaming. I'm not sure if it will. I think if I do this, yeah, perfect. Okay, cool. Hopefully this doesn't mess anything up. But cool, so I'll give the quick update from the community team. The community team of 1 that is slowly growing, which is really exciting. I don't know if this is, there we go. It might be a little bit laggy just because of how much is going on with my computer, but we'll work it out. So the community team of the Radicle Project has a ton of different areas of responsibility that kind of all fall under this vague term that is community. But I think that the 4 main areas of responsibility that fall under us are communications, partnerships /BD/adoption, whatever you want to call it, governance and stewarding our governance, and then general community management. So while I'm the lead of the team and kind of a team of 1, we're slowly growing and have some new contributors that we've brought on over the last month and continuing into the next month. Specifically on the communication side, we're going to have someone coming on and supporting with content strategy, which is really exciting, and someone taking a hard look at our documentation, trying to make it more accessible, trying to make it more digestible, which will also be fun. On the governance side, we actually have a newly formed governance working group, Jenny, Larry, and Derek, who actually might be on this call right now, who are coming in and helping us start, putting together some formations for governance of the Radicle Treasury, which is related to some of our objectives that I'll walk us through. So that's also exciting. So you might see them in some of the community channels. On the community side, we have our great community mods, Viraptor and Boredom, who hold down the fort always in our community channel. So they are contributing to, and you'll see them around Discord and Matrix as well. And then finally, we have this kind of newly forming partnerships BD team, which is a lot of the ad hoc work that I do on Radicle. It's a hire that we're looking for. If you're interested in contributing, reach out. I can post a GD through our channels. But just ping me about that. But those are kind of the 4 areas of responsibility. And they correlate to some of our yearly objectives that we've laid out, which touch on, all 4 of those different categories. So the first main directive of the community project is just to kind of maintain and improve our community channels to ensure that everything about the Radicle project is accessible, it's transparent, and it's clear. Specifically as we start transitioning to more of a decentralized structure, like what LA presented. So we have a lot of things that we want to do to improve our marketing, or whatever we call marketing, to improve our blog, our content development, our social media. So we hope that throughout the next couple of months, people will be hearing more and be seeing more of the Radicle project as well. The next is to continue to improve the Radicle community infrastructure. I think community infrastructure kind of encompasses everything that relates to having a healthy operating open source project. So this is our community channels. We recently launched our Discord around, I think, like a month and a half ago, and that's been going really great. It's kind of like the new hub for our community to congregate. So I think we'll continue expanding and growing on that. We also have a great team of community moderators who have been a saving grace, helping us keep in tune with what's happening on the community side of things. And this community call, so I think that our team will be really focused on how establishing project-wide best practices for how we can be communicating and disseminating work from the project within the project, not just with the core team, but in the Radicle ecosystem as well. So I think that will be a continuous process with the community calls kind of being a first step towards that. The third one is a very governance-heavy objective, which I think is one of the ones that I'm most excited about, which is devising and implementing a plan for expanding the reach of the Radicle Treasury into the Radicle ecosystem. So Ellie and I have been working a ton on kind of getting this process started, but we're really excited to have this governance working group that we're going to be working with to kind of move us forward in regards to how and when, and we're deploying the Radicle Treasury to support the greater goals of the Radicle project and deploying that. So there's tons of exciting things here. There's an open discussion on radicle.community, sourcing ideas on how we should deploy the Radicle Treasury. So I would love for everybody to get involved there. And we should have some more open discussion work and open work streams kind of opening up over the next couple of weeks regarding this topic as well. So stay tuned. And then finally, the last objective is coordinating partnerships and community initiatives for improving adoption and expanding the Radicle ecosystem. This is broad, and that's because it's really focused on how we can get people using Radicle and how we can be supporting projects in our community to develop and experiment with different use cases for Radicle. So I think most of this work will be really hyper-focused on the launch of Radicle Orgs, which will be our first Ethereum feature, and with it will come a whole new way to kind of collaborate on Radicle using Ethereum. So I think right now, onboarding projects, working with our partners, communicating what people are doing with Radicle is kind of the main goal. But with the overarching goal of developing more of a strategy for adoption and hiring someone to come on and really lead that. So that's exciting. What's on the roadmap for this month? As I said, the community team will be hardcore supporting client teams with Radicle Orgs launch. There's so many things to launch, so much documentation to write. So we're really excited to kind of get started on that and push that forward throughout the next month. The next one, the big on the docket, is proposing a framework for treasury deployment and coordinating the development of this framework publicly alongside of the community. So we'll be open sourcing and kickstarting a governance working group, which will also have its own community calls and will be kind of the hub for a lot of really interesting conversations about where we want to go with the Radicle Treasury. So exciting things coming with that. And then just to continue expanding and refining on our community infrastructure, there's a lot of things that we have on our to-do list about how we can make our community channels easier and more accessible and more engaging as well. Twitch now being a new one of those, so hopefully seeing some more Twitch streams in the future. So I'll end there. We have like 4 minutes left. I'm not sure if there's any questions in the chat, but I can double check right now. It seems like, Julian, you're already answering some questions right now about Radicle coming out of beta and kind of what everybody's roadmap is. So I'll let you take that one in the chat. Does anybody on the call have any questions for each other or other things that they want to discuss? No? Cool. Well, I appreciate everybody for joining and participating. I think that this was a good way to start sharing with the community where everybody's working, what they're working on. Again, we'll be doing these every month, the last Wednesday of every month, and they'll be, the same situation, more demos. Hopefully, we'll be opening this up to community members as they come along as well, getting more contributors in the chat as well. So yeah, thanks everybody for joining. We'll put this up on YouTube after it's downloaded and be sharing it to our Twitter. So I guess we'll just end there. Cool.
Thanks everybody.
Ciao.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Ciao.
Bye.